Good evening and welcome to the FITT Show. I'm Kinzer.
And I'm Thomas Doty. How you doing, my brother?
I'm absolutely fantastic. And we are the FITT Show. It stands for Financial Information for Today and Tomorrow. And we like to welcome you to our world of trying to empower people with knowledge of how to manage their finances. So thankful for people around the country and around the world. And all you people in the United States of America, we're so glad that you voted, because we got to get out there and make a difference. Hey, you all, want to remind everybody to please click on the like button and the heart button and put comments in the comment box because that helps, gives us traction. And the more you do that, the more Facebook opens up and distributes our channel to other people. And go out on YouTube and subscribe and share at the same time. Now, if you missed any of our shows, this is our 76th show. So if you missed any of our shows, you can go back and catch all of them on Facebook Live in the archives under the FITT Show, FITT, capital letters, and you can get all the shows. We covered all the shows, and last week's show was another great show, which was titled "Frugal Habits" um, of Warren Buffett, that worked for Warren Buffett, and he had 10 great ones. And just because you a multi-billionaire person, if it works for him, it also can work for people who not. So don't think you have to be super rich. And that's what we try to express on this show. You don't have to be no finance major. You don't have to be no super rich person with a whole bunch of assets to order to manage your finances. It just takes discipline and knowledge. So with that, Doten, welcome, my brother. How are you today?
Absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that is so good to hear. I hope you stay that way, man, because it's not a given.
I'm hoping so too.
you know, getting there is no problem, but maintaining is the key.
Tell me about it. It's like
So
old
let's
car,
yeah,
always
no
something
lie.
wrong, man.
So let's kick it off, Dope, with how we always stop this show at the top with the stock market update.
It's the first
Let's go
time in
to
a
the
long time.
video.
First time in a long time we've had a good news report. I mean, it's crazy. This was just a crazy day. I think there's hints that inflation might be peaking, and so the market reacted very, very favorably. The Dow was up 1,700 points. This is the best day since 2020. It's 5% in the last week, but a lot of that was today. I mean, today was just crazy. Nasdaq was up 772 points. That's 7.5%. Microsoft's up almost 14%. Now Tesla's down. Tesla's having issues, and most of the issues are related to the because he bought Twitter, and the thinking in the street or in Wall Street is that that's taking away from his focus on Tesla, and that market is starting to heat up. That there are a lot of other uh, EV companies who are starting to get some traction, and it seems like he's taking his eye off the ball, and so the market's reacting accordingly because they're doing everything they should be doing, but it's this Twitter thing is just kind of dragging them down. Apple had a good week. They're up 8 points, almost 6%. They got some headwinds coming too. Their most expensive phone, the Pro series, is having some production issues in China because of COVID, and so they may not be able to get those out. And those are the ones they make the most money on. So that's going to cause some issues. And Pfizer didn't take part in this. They're pretty much flat, and I think the market has taken into account all the money they've made off of COVID. I think they made something like $12 billion off COVID just in the last quarter, but their stock didn't participate in the rally. So hopefully, I mean, you know how this thing goes up and down. You can't celebrate too much when it goes up, and you can't get down too much when it goes down. You invest for the long term and just kind of hang tight and hang in.
We know another thing that affected the market today was what they call the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which is like the cost of goods. And inflation actually lowered from
Yeah.
it was over 8% to something like down to 7% today. So the next chart I want to show everybody is this is the Consumer Price Index, is the year-over-year percentage change on these particular goods. So food at home up from last year's up to 12%. Food away from home, like going out to McDonald's and stuff like that, 8%. Gasoline is up 17.5%. And interesting, shelter is weird. They say shelter. That's actually mortgages is up 6.9%, and rent 7%. Electricity's up though about 14%. That's pretty high.
Yeah,
And
it's gas.
that's up 20% in fuel oil, which there's still homes that, especially out there in the rural areas being fueled by oil. It's up almost 70%. And that's interesting. Clothing is only up 4%. Used cars and used trucks is only up 10%. And new cars is up 8%, almost 9%. And medical services are up 5%. So this is what's happening with the prices, you all, compared, but we're hoping they're showing this today and hoping that they think this is the peak, and they think what the Federal Reserve was doing by raising the Fed fund rate, that is going to help slow the market down. And that's so interesting. People say, wait a minute, why are they trying to slow the market? One minute they're trying to pick the market up, the next minute they're trying to slow it down, because it is a balance, and that's all they're trying to do. But we're hoping that these prices, these increases you see, we're hoping that these are, the ceiling, and they're going to start coming down from here. But we just wanted to show you some of the matrices out there, so you can see with your dollar, is why your dollar is losing purchasing power. So let's talk about the cryptocurrency market for 11/10/2022. So the cryptocurrency market last week was $1 trillion. It has dropped down to 925 billion. That's a $75 billion drop. That's 8% drop. Now, the whole cryptocurrency market from last year, this time has dropped totally 70%. But this is just week to week. Bitcoin, still the number one cryptocurrency. It was $20,203. It has dropped down to $17,547. That's $2,656. It has dropped just from last week. That's 13%. Ethereum, which is a smart contracts cryptocurrency, it has gone down 16%, $237. And then you have the stable coins, which is pegged to the dollar or asset that is equivalent to $1. It dropped by 1 cent, but it's still number 3 cryptocurrency, and Ethereum is still number 2. The Dogecoin is now, last week it was, I think it was, what was last week? I think it was at number 8 last week. And this week it is the Dogecoin was dropped down to, dropped down to 9. It dropped by 4 cents, 8%. And Shiba Inu, the meme, that it's just getting beat up. That's just been going down. It's crazy how that has been tanking. So that's the cryptocurrency market. We still say it's the long play, but now, as you can see, when we said from the beginning, it is so highly speculative that the Security and Exchange Commission doesn't even, they actually doesn't even regulate it. They don't give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down on it. All they say is highly speculative, and this, as you can see, shows. So,
we got to fix that. That Dogecoin is down like 33%.
Oh, but sorry about, yeah. Oh, wait a minute, how did? Okay, thank you, though. Thank you.
We got to get that figured out. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't update that. That's my not updating, but so Though, with that, the this week's subject is a big one because we come to the year, we head towards the end of the year, and we want to give you time to review your financial strategies uh, so that you can take advantage of a lot of the things before the end of the year, and then make sure you be able to propel yourself to take advantage of the things in 2003.
Yeah, it's don't wait until January to start getting ready for next year. I mean, now is the time. You still have time to make adjustments to take advantage of things that you can get now to increase your wealth, and you can get ready for 2023. So you go in there with a full head of steam, ready to start working on building your wealth. Year in review is the perfect time to get your house in order. Several things to look at so you don't miss an opportunity. You don't want to miss or leave money on the table. And then you want to make sure you don't have any bad surprises in 2023 or get off to a slow start or have money in the wrong place. So, things like taking your tax deductions, your charitable contributions, do the right things with your IRAs and 401ks. Make sure your health savings account is spent in your flexible savings account. Make sure you use all the money that's in there. And just getting yourself ready to close out the year financially strong, and you'll be ready to start next year. And there's no time like right now to take a look at what you've done this year and what you're going to do next year.
And in the year, like Doak said, is a good time to look back on the events that shaped the last 12 months and prepare for what may lie ahead. Like, maximizing your tax efficiency to planning, for those big life events. But our year-end checklist can help you prepare to hit the ground running for 2023. Now, it's easy to get caught up in the emotions during the tough markets and the weak economies. However, it may be helpful to keep in mind that bear markets and recessions are not an anomaly. So what we want to talk about is some of the things that we think, we suggest that you should look at. And the thing is, some of these things are things we talked about last year, but you got to be careful because the difference is some of the benchmarks or some of the levels of requirements have changed. So pay attention to the changes in the limits in the IRAs and your 401k plans. So don't you take the first one.
Okay, and if anybody's been watching this show, they know my first priority is always going to be review your financial plan. What else would you expect from a doggone accountant? So look at your spending patterns. Were you able? Did you hit your goals? If you didn't hit your goals, try to figure out why, and take a look at things and be critical and say, what can I do better next year? What should I have done? I mean, don't beat yourself up because what's done is done, but get ready for next year and don't make the same mistakes next year that you made this year, and do a complete review. If you got extra money, think about where to invest it. It's a great time to look back and say, okay, I got some extra money here. I can get this to working for me, and where should I put it? Look at your short-term goals, your long-term goals. See if they've changed. Is there anything different about what you're doing as far as your goals? Or any things you should be doing differently? Has your life changed? All those types of things. Now's the time to do it. Get a plan. And, people don't, unless you hit the lottery, you don't build wealth by accident. It has to be a plan, and you take the time and you figure out what you need to do. If you need to talk to your financial professional, then do that and just do whatever it takes to get a plan, get it on track, close the year out, not leaving anything on the table, and getting ready for next year.
And so with planning, and you're having that budget and in your plan and everything, I just want to add to that, you might want to also as the year winds down, it's a good time to restock your emergency fund. If you don't have one, start one. Aim at least to 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, because a lot of things may come up and you might need to adjust that for the coming year. So the next thing I want to talk about is the employee benefits. Now, are you able to max out your employer-sponsored 401k plan or 401(b) or IRA account? Now, if your employee matches contributions, you will contribute up to, at a minimum, the company match. Some have 3%, 5, 6, and that's money. Like, it's almost like if you're not matching, you're missing out on 100% of getting, an increase,
Yeah,
a match. So
you ain't getting all your pay, basically.
you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
So so once you make sure you review your allocation within your employee plans, your 401k plans. Are you happy with the ratios of stock, bonds, and other assets, or do you need to rebalance? Now, a lot of people be chasing performance, and you can't be doing that. You need to balance your asset allocation accordingly, and just let it stay. And if you were way more aggressive than you need to be, than most people, you might want to look at it and think about, do you want to stay aggressive? If you do, that's fine. But if not, find the risk, the level that you're willing to take, and then look at the actual allocation of stocks and the bonds, and also the diversification. First one, the allocation, and then the diversification. You might want to look at it. Do you want to have more stocks than bonds?
And Bob, it's we often talk about getting a financial advisor, but it might be a little difficult to find a financial advisor to just look at your company monies, because typically they want to get involved in the investing and make some money. But there are financial advisors out there. You might have to pay a fee for them to review your company 401k or savings plan or whatever it's called, to help you figure out where your money should be. And so if you need that help, don't hesitate to find somebody to get you the help you need, because you might say, I don't know where my money should be. And so you might need a financial advisor to help you do that. You could probably find one at a reasonable fee to review your monies, and he might help you determine where you should be investing your money, or this rebalancing Bob just mentioned. So if you need help, go get help. Don't continue to make the same mistakes, or doing things and not knowing, wondering if you're doing the right things. It might be worth a fee to go ahead and get some professional help somebody figure out where you should be.
Another one is review your health, life, and disability insurance coverage. Now, later on down in our presentation, we're going to talk more about insurance coverage, but this also, we mentioned this because we're talking about your employee benefits. But, do you need to make changes during open enrollment, which right now is open enrollment for healthcare? So we're going to talk about that a little bit further more as far as understanding your insurance coverages. And, if you enrolled in a health savings account, have you maxed out your contributions for the year? If you enrolled in the flexible spending account, do you need to use up any remaining funds, or can you roll them over? Do you need to adjust your withholdings based on this year's spending? These are things you need to consider, especially when we start talking about employee benefits. Now, for the current tax year, the maximum 401k, 401(b) contributions is $20,500, plus an additional $6,500 if you are 50 or older. It's called the catch-up. And that comes to, if you're over 50, you can put as much as $27,000 in now. When I was coming through, before I retired, it was like about at $18,000. So they're increasing it. Now, a lot of people don't look at this because a lot of people don't get to this benchmark, but there are some people who do. because the total employer and employee contributions cannot exceed $61,000 or 100% of your employee's compensation. So a lot of people know they don't get there, but there are some people that do. There's some managers and some people who are making that kind of money. So there is a cap on the amount that you can contribute, both as an employer and an employee. Now, the maximum contributions for your employee sponsors plans, they've gotten a bigger boost. So for 2023, it's going up to $22,000 and $22,500 for 2023. And the 50 and older catch-up contribution goes up to $7,500. So next year you're gonna be able, if you're over 50, you can put away over $30,000. Wow, that is great.
Yeah, that's all inflation related. So everything that's adjusted for inflation is what's creating these increases.
These increases, right? So, so I mean, it's kind of, it's not misleading. It's just how it is. You may like, oh man, I'm getting a boost, but really, it's just trying to keep you in pace with inflation. So the time value of your money, it has a little bit more value. Then the IRA contributions is going to be $6,500 plus $1,000 if you're 50 years old and plus. And if you're not maxing out on your contributions, consider at least increasing it on an annual basis at least. Now, calculate your remaining health insurance deductibles and determine if you can accelerate or postpone medical treatments. That's important, you all. That is so important. For the current tax year, don't I need to really check this, but it should be at the maximum health savings plan contributions, $3,600 for individuals and $7,200 in addition for families, an additional $1,000 for individuals 55 and plus. So use up your flexible savings account. There's some qualified products you may not have thought of, such as, from contact lens solutions to bandages, which you can purchase with these funds. So review those flexible spending accounts and HSS's health savings accounts.
Okay, next we have taxes. And that one can be complicated. And again, if you need help, go get help. You got to ask yourself, did you have any major investment losses this year? And if you did, you need to understand all the ramifications of that. Because if you had gains, you can offset those two, but it's kind of tricky how you do it. You have to offset long-term gains with long-term losses, short-term gains with short-term losses. And then you can look at the net and offset anything that's left over out of those two buckets. And the thing you want to do, obviously, is if you have holding on to a stock and it no longer fits your portfolio, or you feel it hasn't done well and you don't see a future for it, you might want to consider selling it, especially if you have something that you've recorded a gain on, and you can use that loss to offset the gain. A couple things to remember. Let's say you only have a loss and your loss is $5,000. Well, you only get to claim $3,000. That's the maximum amount of loss you can claim each year. So that $2,000 extra will carry over into the next year. You got to be aware of that. And that's one of those situations where, if you, let's say you use TurboTax and you download last year's into this year's information, it'll carry that forward. So just be cognizant of the fact if you change tax software, make sure you pick up any carryovers that you have, okay? And so take a look at all your investment losses, see where you are, see what you can do to offset any possible gains, just to minimize your taxes. That's always the goal. And take a look at your income for next year and think about whether you should be deferring money at the end of this year, or maybe accelerating some bonuses if that's possible, depending on where your income is. And look at any property sales or any other taxable transactions that you might have, and make sure you're handling that in a way that's going to, again, minimize your taxes. Look at any deductible expenses, charitable gifts that you might have, and you might look at trying to book all your charitable expenses. You might want to do that every other year. For example, let's say you give $3,000 a year and you don't reach the threshold for not taking the standard deduction. So you say, I might want to take and do double that amount if that's going to increase your likelihood of exceeding the amount of standard deduction. And so take a look at your total picture and think about what can get you paying the minimum amount of taxes. Look at your tax exemptions to make sure you're having enough money withheld, that you're going to be okay at the end of this year. And the basic rules are you have to have 90%, I believe it is, 90% of what you owe has to have been withheld, okay? Or you have to have 100% of what you paid in taxes the prior year. So if you have a big windfall this year, you might not necessarily get stuck with a penalty if you had the same amount withheld as you at least have withheld what you had withheld last year. So again, take a look at it, because you still have December to make any adjustments that you need to make in order to be sure you don't end up with a tax penalty for under withholding. And by the same token, make sure you ain't going to be sitting on a giant return, because again, you can get that money monthly and do something positive with it, okay? And so remember, you can wait until the tax due date to contribute to your IRA. You don't have to do it by December 31st. You got until April 15th. I think that's the tax day this year, but don't hold me to that. I'm not sure. And again, we talked a little bit about tax harvesting. That's just handling your transactions to, again, minimize your taxes. And we don't know what potential tax changes are going to come up between now and the end of the year, but something could happen. You need to be aware of that. This is one of those situations, again, if you need to get help, go get help. Find somebody to make sure you are taking advantage of every possible tax deduction, tax exemption, tax break that you can get to minimize your taxes. And start thinking now about being in a position next year to take advantage of those same things.
Hey, Doug, can you just talk a little bit about how the new standard deductions work, because they've made them so much higher that a lot of people don't need to itemize? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that was, again, excuse me for I said I wouldn't get political, but that was just a big tax break for the rich people. That's all that was. But we kind of fell for the okie doke on that one. But what it is, they increased the amount of the standard deductions, which eliminated a lot of people actually itemizing deductions. I think for a married couple, the standard deduction is somewhere 28, 29,000, somewhere in that range if you're married. And it's probably half of that if you're single. So if you have $2,000 in mortgage interest, and they also capped taxes, like state taxes, property taxes, income taxes at $10,000. And so you'd have to have a lot of interest, charitable deductions. You only get $10 in taxes in order to be able to itemize. So a lot more people are taking the standard deduction. And that's why if it's possible, you might want to look at doubling your expenses, like I was saying about contributions. Instead of donating $4,000 this year, maybe you do zero this year, and on January 1st, you do $8,000, if that's going to help you exceed the standard deduction amount. Okay, so yeah, most people are taking the standard deduction now, and that's how that works.
And believe it or not, Toad, it's really hurting a lot of churches because a lot of people, believe it or not, was taking their tithes and they were getting, write-offs because of their tithes. But when they came with the standard deduction of this amount, it was hurting church because now you were getting that write-off and you didn't have to tithe as much and get that write-off. So it really affected a lot of churches too. Sorry to hear a lot of pastors.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case, but you and I both know that it is.
Thank you. Not for everybody. We just talk about lottie-dottie, but not everybody.
Yeah.
So the next one is investments, you all. Has your asset allocation shifted during the year? Meaning, like I said before, if you got 70% stocks, 20% bonds and 10%, in money markets, knowing how the market's been taking such a beating, you might want to readjust your asset allocation that's in, blue chip stocks, which is higher risk than being in bonds. Or, you might feel you can handle the risk and know that it's going to come back with, as they say, most after recessions or bear markets, it takes somewhere anywhere between 13 and 18 months for it to return its losses. But you need to look at thinking about adjusting your asset allocation. Does it still work for you? Does your risk tolerance meet your timeline and goals? They work hand in hand. If you have a goal that you want to meet, then if it's a short-term goal, you don't want to be taking a large risk. But if it's a long-term goal, you may take a large risk because remember, sometimes the higher the risk, the greater the reward. So you might want to look at your timeline and your goals compared to your risk tolerance. Did you see large capital gains for the tax year? If you did, you might want to take those. Have you contributed to a 529 plan, a college plan? That's another one because it gives you some tax deductions statewide, right? At a 529 plan. If you haven't, you might want to start one. If you have, a child that's in you have a child, or if you have a grandchild, this is a good time to start putting it in because it does give you some tax advantages too. Do you have the appropriate tax diversification with your portfolio? So, don't explain that a little bit better with the tax diversification with your portfolio.
That one's a little bit trickier, okay? And I think what you're referring to is looking at are you doing tax exempt versus
Right.
assets that have a long-term gain? And we've talked before about how you get a break on taxes with a long-term capital gain. And so you pay a lower tax rate, again, depending on your income. So you can pay 0 if you make X amount or below, you can pay 15% in the next bracket. And then finally, if you make over, and I don't know the exact amount, but if you make over a certain amount, you have to pay 20%. But that's typically still lower than your marginal tax rate, which is, as we talked about before, the marginal tax rate is the amount you pay on the last dollar that you make, okay? And so that's when you start looking at, do I invest in something? Should I look at a tax exempt situation, or do I look at something that's going to be taxable? And again, that's something where you need a financial advisor to look at your entire situation and help you decide what's best for your situation.
Right. Tax diversification, because you got taxable accounts, you got tax deferred accounts, and you got tax-free accounts. So that's the different things that you can be diversified in when it comes to taxes. Now, outperforming and underperforming assets might leave your portfolio unbalanced. So be sure to review your allocation and rebalance as needed. Those are what I said. outperforming and underperforming assets may leave your portfolio unbalanced. Make a note of any capital gains or investment losses. As the end of the year approaches, keep a close watch on the proposed tax policy changes. That's what Doug was just saying. They could change tax policies before the end of the year. And this is why, why I have somebody do my taxes who is a CPA that does taxes, because they stay up on that kind of stuff. I don't. But that's the thing when you go and get advice from financial advisors and tax advisors, they can let you know of any proposed tax changes and work with your tax advisor to determine if you should accelerate capital gains or as Dote said, or have harvest losses, have those harvest your tax losses into 2023, if any.
Okay. The next item, and I touched on this before, charitable contributions. And again, that's if you want to make, if you do itemize and that's driving you, you might want to make sure you make your donation by the end of the year and look at your tax situation to see if it can help you. That shouldn't be the driving force, but you do need to take it into consideration to make sure you do, again, minimize your taxes. And you might donate a little more, might help you get to a lower tax bracket. So you could possibly save some money there. Another thing that a lot of people may or may not be interested in, if you have an appreciated asset, for example, let's say I got 100 shares of Microsoft and it's gone up $20,000 since I bought it. I could make a donation with the asset and I don't have to realize the capital gain, and I get a deduction for the fair market value of that asset. And again, if you're in that situation, that's another case where you need to talk to a financial advisor and make sure you understand that. But donating appreciated assets does definitely have more value for you in minimizing your taxes, because again, it can help you lower, you won't have to claim the capital gain, and you also get the maximum amount of the contribution.
So, Doug, can you just give a quick example? Say I put $10,000 into Apple and it grew to $25,000. Can you use that example to help people?
Yeah, and so if you didn't donate that Apple stock, you'd have a capital gain of $15,000, and you'd have to pay. Let's say you're in a 20% tax bracket on that $15,000. You'd have to pay $3,000 in taxes. Okay, but let's say you are feeling generous and you want to donate that money, so you now have,
to your church, say you want to donate.
Yeah, church. Yeah, and so you now have a $20,000 tax deduction. You avoid the $3,000 capital gain that you would have had to pay. So you kind of get a double kick for having donated that Apple stock instead of cashing it out and then donating it after you make the sale. You have to make the donation before you actually sell the stock. And so that kind of passes that capital gain on, makes it disappear, and you get the maximum charitable contribution.
And that's what you say, you get the fair market value of that asset. You get to recognize that on your taxes.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When you told me about that one, I'm like, whoa, I don't know if people know about that one.
Right. And, I talked about bunching, or maybe forcing all your contributions into 1 year, if that will help you push out of that standard deduction. That may help you. You're giving the same amount of money, but you're just doing it in the year so it benefits you the most. Okay. Now, even if you can't itemize, you can still deduct $300 for single, $600 for couples as a cash deduction, even if you take the standard deduction. So make sure you don't forget that if you do your own taxes. If you hire a tax professional, they should be aware of that. And I'm sure most people donate at least $300 or $600 between a couple. Yeah, make sure you get that credit for having donated cash, even if you take the standard deduction.
Wow, that's another good one, though.
Yeah.
So let's talk about credit and debt for the year-end review. Now, have you reviewed your loan positions in terms to make sure you're getting the most favorable rates and terms? Because as you know, the rates have definitely been changing. Actually, they've been going up. So you might want to review your loan positions to see if you can refinance or to a better rate, or you might have a better rate and stay where you are. But it depends on what you have. You need to look at that. Have you made progress in paying down your debt? That's a part. That's another one that you can look at, especially when you start talking about the two different ways to do it. You got the avalanche and the snowball effect. The avalanche is you pay the biggest one and start with the biggest and go down. Then the snowball effect is like you take the lowest, smallest one and work up to the bigger ones. The snowball effect's usually psychological, so you can see some rewards of your actions. Sometimes you take the avalanche where you try to pay down the big one first. You can get discouraged because it doesn't go down as fast, and you get a little discouraged. But those are two different strategies that you can have in paying your debt down, especially your credit card debt. Now, are there ways to minimize your total interest payments by prioritizing high interest debt or consolidating? And that's an option. Sometimes there's some personal loans that you can get with a good rate where you can consolidate all of that and get a better interest rate. But you don't know unless you go out there and look and ask. And more important, be diligent with interest rates because they're increasing. Are the products you're using from your credit cards to your loans serving your needs? You need to really look at that. Do you have the right credit cards? If not, you need to look at, either, getting rid of them, canceling them out, or, find a better credit card that suits your needs. You need to evaluate how you balance your debt with your other goals, including savings and investments, and make sure you're prioritizing each one accordingly, because there's a balancing, and like I said, if you got a short-term goal, you might want to be taking a big risk. And if you got a long-term goal, you might take a little bit more. And then with the way the prices are going, like up and everything, and interest rates, you might want to, think about saving your money a little bit more, putting it in a more secure place now that they're paying maybe 3, 4%, 5% in some of these money markets. Review the terms of any outstanding balance to make sure you have the best possible rate. Refinance your loans and mortgages if appropriate. And lastly, research credit cards with reward points and programs for either cash back or travel rewards. But just remember this, you all, about the credit cards with reward points. And I like the cash back myself. Though, by the way, let me ask you about that. Though, what do you prefer, the points or the cash back?
And see, I have several, Bob. I use the one I use every day. I get cash back, but I get points for my hotel and my airline. And so, yeah, I don't get cash back for those. And on my Amazon, I always get cash back. Costco card, I get cash back. And Bob, I'm so cheap that the one
How cheap are you?
the one I use for Amazon and Whole Foods, I have a credit card that's for both of those. I get 5% back on everything I buy from Amazon and everything I buy from Whole Foods. But so they give you a cash back monthly, and you can use it to buy more things, or you can use it to get cash back. And I'd always say, well, take the cash back because you don't want to use that credit to buy something because you ain't getting 5% on that. And so
Right.
I make sure I get my cash. The same thing with the money I get back from Costco. I always go in and cash the check and let them give me cash, as opposed to using it to buy more things. Because back when the kids were here, I was getting $800-900 back a year with all the food and stuff I was getting from Costco, and I'd go in with the checks. And a couple of times they say, "Oh no, we don't have that much cash," but eventually I get it cash, because even at 9%, I mean $900, and you say, okay, 3% of $900 really isn't that much money. It's only $27, but to me, $27 is $27. I'd rather have $27 in my pocket than $27 in Costco pockets. And that's how I kind of handle all of my finances. And it doesn't take me any extra effort. I just had a check in my pocket. They can cash it, they cash it. If they can't, I'll wait till I'm back there again. But I always get cash and then buy what I want to buy with the credit card. That's how cheap I am, Bob.
Yeah, you're El Cheapo extraordinaire, but I'm proud of you. I've learned a lot.
Okay, and the last one, and the next one is not a topic anybody likes talking about, but you know how we always say we're not financial advisors, we don't give financial advice. The one thing we can say unequivocally is we're all going to die. And so you need to plan for that. And so have you reviewed your will or trust in the last few years? Anything changed that would significantly affect what's in your will or your trust? Any life transitions, that you need to consider? Did your beneficiaries change? Trustee designations, did that change? That happened like when my kids were in school. I had a couple of kids that were in school, a couple of kids that were grown. So when I would do my beneficiaries at that time, I would leave a little bit more for the kids that were still in school because they had college to pay for, the other one was grown. But things like that you need to take into account and update as necessary. And stay abreast of any tax law changes, because that happens all tax changes happen all year long. The gift tax exclusion, which means you can give a monetary gift of $16,000 to each of your kids without any taxable consequences. And I think that went up again this year. But what did we, is it 16.5 now or 17?
It was 16,000. Wait a minute, for what? For
next year. For next year. I think it goes up next year.
It's 16,000. I don't know for next year, but it's 16,000 this year.
Yeah, 16,000 this year, but I think it's going up for next year.
Right.
And again, and look at if you need a will or if you need a trust. A trust can help you avoid probate in some situations, which keeps the lawyers from making money. So look at your situation, figure out what's best for you. And taxes are huge. You need to understand where you live. If you, I forgot the exact, I think it's around $10 million is the amount of the exempt. If you have up to $10 million, you don't have to pay any federal estate taxes. But every state has their own estate tax laws. So be cognizant of where you live and what your taxes are in your particular state. And not that you want to consider moving, but that may drive you to get a trust so you don't have to pay those taxes in that situation. But again, this is something where you really do need some professional advice from a lawyer. And if you have accumulated some money, you don't want to have it all tied up in probate or have your kids having to pay taxes on it if it can be avoided. So take a look at that and make sure you have that figured out.
Yeah, that's very key. Last one is another one that a lot of people sometimes don't like to talk about is insurance. So you need to review existing policies and coverage. And you need to review existing policies and coverage. And is the current coverage sufficient? Consider cost comparisons. Be aware of your values. Be aware of values your house and other items like jewelry, things like that, art may have that appreciated and is affected by inflation. You might be underinsured or you might be overinsured. Does the original purpose for your insurance policy still exist? If not, you need to review your insurance coverage options, especially, even with your car insurance. I find a lot of people usually get the minimum personal liability, which is, I think, maybe around $300,000. But nowadays, with people
Varies
driving
by
up,
state, Bob. It
it,
varies by state.
and thank you very much. It varies by state, but that's why I say on average, it could be anywhere between 100,000 and 300,000 minimum. And everybody usually get the minimum because it's cheaper premium. But nowadays, with these people, man, driving these big expensive cars and everybody got highfalutin jobs, you might want to cover yourself, a little bit more to cover yourself because of the changing times.
And Bob, especially if you got kids driving.
And wow. And especially if you got kids driving. Then the other one is so key. Are your beneficiaries up to date? Especially if you had a life event recently, like births, marriages, death, divorce, or even retirement. Now I remember when I was doing investment advisory associate and doing financial planning, older couple came in and we gave them a free review of their, financial situation. And I was looking down at his insurance policies and I saw his wife's name was one name, and the wife's name on the insurance policy was a different name. And I'm like, oh boy. I said, sir, did you know that you have another name down here for your benefit? And she said, man, that's his other wife. He haven't changed that, man. She went off and he just forgot to change it. So look at those beneficiaries and make sure you get them up to date. And, they got a lot of tools out there, like a life insurance calculator to review your situation each year. You can put in the things you have and it'll tell you the amount of insurance or recommend the amount of insurance coverage that you should have. So, please keep that in mind. So with that, dope, a lot of people are chiming in saying they do cash back. They're not doing the points. All right, Joanne and Garnett. They say they're getting the cash. Like
That's
Chuck Brown
sure.
saying. Chuck Brown saying, MasterCard, Visa, American Express ain't got nothing against those credit cards, but cash is the best. I want my money. So let's go to the summary and takeaways, dope.
Okay.
We gave a lot of information here tonight. As always, we got 20 pounds of information in a 10-pound bag.
Well, the first one is always my favorite. And review your financial plan. That's something that should be the cornerstone of your wealth building. You have to have a plan. You have to review it. It has to make sense. Has to be a SMART goal. And you don't have a plan, you just going through the motions. You're gonna end up anywhere if you don't have a plan to get somewhere. So review your plan.
And I talked about this earlier. Adjust as necessary. Understand the reason you are not reaching your goals. If you're not reaching goals, understand why you're not there to make adjustments. It's life, you all. It's all about changes. And changes are all about being able to make adjustments. So understand, your reason for reaching your goals or not reaching your goals and make that adjustment.
Yeah. Review your taxes and investments. You don't want to be surprised. You don't want to have a withholding penalty to Mr. IRS. You don't want to find out you could have sold a stock and recognized the gain after December 31st. Review your information, get help if you need to get help.
Maximize your charitable giving. And Doe gave some great other new tips on how you can do that by, donating your assets that you had accumulated and donating them and possibly getting those write-offs. So maximize your charitable giving, even though you might be using the standard deduction.
Maximize your employee benefits. That's all part of your paycheck. You don't want to leave any of your paycheck on the table. If you have money in your health account, make sure you use it. If they have a computer benefit, make sure you're taking advantage of that. But get all the money that you're entitled to. You probably work, anybody who's working now is working pretty hard. Make sure you're maximizing how much you get and you're using every benefit that the company gives you.
This is a critical checkpoint for reviewing your wealth building performance. This will position you to end the year knowing you did everything possible to maximize your wealth. And that's all we're trying to do, right? We want to build wealth, we want to grow wealth, and we want to have generational wealth where we can exchange that wealth over to our kids and others that we may want to help once we actually pass away. But it first begins with, really checking and reviewing you all, where you are. And you should not wait until the end of the year either, though, correct? You should be doing this throughout the year, semi-annually, quarterly or monthly.
Yeah, and like we're talking about now, you still have a little time to make some adjustments if you need to, but this should be part of what you're doing. Again, wealth building isn't easy, but it's a lot more fun having money than it is not having money. I tell you that.
Right.
Wealth building isn't easy.
Right. So, please keep that in mind. So, like we always do, Dope, before we go out of here, we want to give a shout out to all our friends and family that supports us. Modestine, as always, thank you. She's another stalwart, man. Garnett, what's up, Garnett? Always a pleasure, my dear. And Carl Chapman, my brother, always good. This one, I know my sisters love their little brother Bob. But you know what the real truth to the matter is? Your little brother Bob loved the mess out of my sisters. Nolia is in my corner, Linda's in my corner, and Gloria all the time. Kins of family, remember, blood makes you relatives, but love makes you family. Next, I want to say to my man Rodney L. Madison Sr., the noteexperience.com. Go out there and check them out if y'all want to know more about mortgage notes, how to hold on to mortgage notes, and you be the banker. It's so easy to do, you all. And Rodney has all the information. Go out there on this site, noteexperience.com, and you can learn a lot about just another possible investment alternative. Please go out there. Thank you. And hello out there to my friends over there in England and Scotland that are tuning in tonight. What's up? Good to see y'all checking in. As always, David Norval, it's a pleasure to see you out there, brother. Thank you for hanging in because we know. So if it's, that's right. If it's 9 here at 5 there, what is that, though? 3 o'clock there? Something like that in the morning. So thanks
5
for tuning in.
hours. Yeah, 5 hours be 2 if they, further
Right.
east. It's 3, you're right.
Right. And they're hanging in there with us, though. So thank you all. This is our 76th show, Dope. Thank you so much, my brother. Look, I learned so much from you, man. It's amazing. So thank you.
It goes both ways.
So look, make sure y'all tune in next week. And look, y'all, please share this information. Go out there and share this information with your family, your friends, your grandmama, your granddaddy, great-great-grandchildren, grandchildren, because this is some information that is really, really needed. And I don't care if there's a Democrat or Republican in the office. I don't care if there's a pandemic. I don't care if it's a tsunami or hurricane. If you plan your finances right, just take the time and plan it. It doesn't matter. You will be able to absorb any future shock that occurs. So remember that, y'all. It's so key to take the time and plan your finances because it will lower your stress and provide you a lifestyle that you'll be able to live and go around the world. That's our hopes, though, that people free themselves from debt and they find and live a life that's free. With that, have a wonderful you all. We look forward to seeing you next week. Same back channel, same back place. Thank you very much. Have a great night.